What's up, world? My name's Chef Jean-Paul Bourgeois, and I'm in the Louisiana Cookin Test Kitchen, your authority for all things great at the Bayou State. Today, we are cooking a rabbit sauce piquante. Don't worry, if your rabbit ain't your thing, you can't get it, you can go chicken, you can go alligator, you can go fish, you can go deer. Really, this Cajun dish kind of takes on all proteins, whatever one you want. So let's get started here. I want to introduce you to some of our ingredients. Of course, we've got raw whole rabbits right here. We have our Trinity, which is onion, bell pepper, and celery. We got some garlic, a little jalapeno. So sauce piquante actually translates into spicy or hot sauce like piquant. So we like to add some jalapeno into this. We have some diced canned tomatoes, tomato paste, hard-boiled eggs, green onions, olives, cocktail onions, and some homemade chicken stock. Now, usually in Cajun cooking, especially for something like sauce piquante, we would say, first you gotta make a roux, but not in this case. We have to get these rabbits poached and cooked first. And what I like to do, I'll just drop them into this pot like this, and then pour chicken stock over the top. And then go ahead and turn that fire on to high. Now the goal, right, is to poach this rabbit in this chicken stock, but also to be able to use that stock and that rabbit cooking liquid to actually make your sauce piquante as the stock or in the foundation of this dish. So we got a little bit to go to get that rabbit poached and cook all the way to where we can shred it off the bone. Luckily, the crew here in the test kitchen has really been an incredible resource to getting these videos done, and they went ahead and already picked some of this rabbit. But we're not gonna waste it, so that's gonna be cooking on the back burner, and then we can start making a roux. While our rabbits are poaching, I'm gonna go ahead and start my roux. Now, it's important to know that the roux that we're looking for is a milk chocolate in color roux, and that takes about 45 minutes to an hour. So it's plenty enough time to make the roux while this rabbit poaches in this liquid. For this size pot, we're looking at about 3/4 cup of flour to 3/4 cup of oil. Now, what I like to do, because I've made thousands and thousands of roux, quite literally, I'll turn my heat up to high, and I'll get my oil in, and I'll wait for that oil to just start to smoke or shimmer, and then I'll turn it off and stir in my flour. If you are a beginner and you've never made a roux, only made a roux a handful of times, go ahead and start from cold oil and on low heat. And what you want to do is always continually stir that roux. For 45 minutes, I'm going to be here stirring this roux with this paddle. Another good piece of advice, find yourself a flat wooden paddle if to use as your roux paddle. One, that flat edge helps scrape that bottom, make sure that none of that flour is sticking to the bottom. But also, you can use something like a rubber spatula. That will work, but as this gets hot, it gets really flimsy. And if that roux splatters on you, that's gonna leave a mark, and that gets really flimsy. And so as it stirring that roux, it's funny, it's not funny when you get burned by roux, but the idea, some Cajuns will call it Cajun napalm, because when it sticks to you, it continues to burn because that sticky power of the flour. So do yourself a favor, don't use a rubber spatula. Even though you can do it with a rubber spatula, don't use a rubber spatula. Find yourself a flat edge wooden spoon or spatula like this. A whisk also works, but again, the wires in the whisk can get a little flimsy when they get hot, and also it doesn't have that flat edge to continually scrape the bottom. You don't want to use metal on this enamel coated pot, and you don't want to use metal scraping a metal pot either. So again, I believe this wooden style paddle is the best kind of roux paddle for you to use. This oil is already getting hot. It's starting to shimmer. It's going to give it a couple more minutes till I start adding my flour. We got this nice dark brown brick red kind of roux happening here. I don't want to take it too dark because I don't want to cover up and mask all the other great things that are happening in this sauce piquante. And right now I'm looking pretty good with starting on my next steps. And with that, I like to add my onion right into my roux. You can turn this up. This is gonna continue, that roux is gonna continue to brown with the onions because I'm not adding my bell pepper and celery into that yet. I wanna add my onions first. Really wanna start letting those onions soften and start to caramelize in that hot roux before I add the rest of my vegetables. This is gonna cook for a good, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes until those onions start to soften and start to fry back into that roux. Let's go ahead and add our garlic as well. That's right on medium-high heat. We're gonna let those onions and garlics kind of saute in that roux for a little bit. Just building levels of flavor is the thing to remember here. With most Cajun food or Creole food or most Southern food, these types of things where it's one pot cooking, you're starting with a roux and you're building flavors with ingredients and changing the textures and cooking and smothering and caramelizing. It's about leveling up those flavors over on top of each other. So when you get to that final dish, that end product, and that final taste of the spoon, bam, right there. It's like in your face. It's all coming together in this pot. But you gotta take the time to develop the flavors in there. It's not just a dump and stir, set it and forget it thing. Cajun food, Southern food, most of the foods that come out of Louisiana, it's a food of intention. It's something that you gotta commit to. You can't rush it. You gotta be patient. You gotta love it, and in turn, it'll love you back. Our onions are softening. I can smell them. I can see them. I can smell their sweetness coming out in that roux. I know that's when it's time for my next steps. So we're gonna finish out the trinity with bell peppers, celery, and jalapeno for this dish, because it is sauce piquante, so we do want some heat in there. Basic rule of thumb is a 2 to 1 to 1 ratio of trinity, meaning 2 parts onion, 1 part bell pepper, 1 part celery. You can always kind of move those ratios around to fit your taste and liking, but that's how I kind of think of how much, trinity I'm gonna cut, is that 2 to 1 to 1 ratio. Now, as this gets in there, that bell pepper and celery, which holds a lot of water, is gonna stop the cooking of that roux. That water is gonna start leaching out into this mixture as it gets hot, and then you're gonna see it's kind of gonna start making what might resemble a little sauce as that bell pepper and celery soften and release that moisture back into the roux. All right, my peppers and celery have softened. I'm gonna add a little tomato paste in there. That's just gonna give this sauce piquante a little more body. I'm gonna stir that in. We don't want this to go long in this mixture, because that tomato paste is so full of sugar that mixture's so hot, we don't want that to burn. We just want to kind of get it incorporated. You can see that mass, that mush that it's now producing. And that roux is kind of thickening all the liquid that is in those vegetables as well. And then we're gonna add some of those diced canned tomatoes right in. Stir that in. Looking pretty good here. Let's give that a good stir. Add a little touch, maybe a cup of white wine. Cup of white wine goes in, and then we have our hot stock. This is the stock that the rabbit was braised in, so it's kind of like a dark chicken and rabbit stock there. And while this is hot and this is hot, when you're adding liquid to a roux, make sure that the stock that you're adding is also hot. If you add cold stock to a hot roux mixture, you risk the possibility of breaking that roux and the flour separating from the liquid itself. So you want those two ingredients, stock and roux mixture, to be as close as possible at the same temperature. That makes sense. So just ladle by ladle, we're just adding that stock in, letting it come up. just like that. I'm just gonna switch hands. That feels a little better. And I'm also making a mess. Now this needs to cook for an hour or 2 hours. It really needs to come together. Remember what I said about patience and intention when cooking Cajun food and a lot of the foods from South Louisiana. It really needs time to come together. There's a lot of ingredients here in one pot, and it needs to really become this one dish here. And the only way to do that is to keep letting it simmer together. Okay, our sauce piquant is in its beginning stages of kind of sitting and simmering and doing its thing. I've added all the stock that I want. I'm gonna keep it here, that stock, ready to go. If I need to adjust it all, if it needs a little more liquid, I'll add it from there. But right now, I want to kick that down to a simmer. It's right there. Once it comes up to a boil, that's when you know how thick it's going to be. So you need that sauce piquant to come up to a nice simmer or boil to tell how thick or thin it actually really is. And from there, you can make your decisions. I'm feeling good right here. What we want to do is give it its first initial seasonings. We're not going to say, oh, it needs to be seasoned all the way right now, but we do want to add some seasoning in here now, then adjust along the way. So I've just added some salt. I'm gonna add a little Cajun seasoning here, some fresh black pepper, a little touch of cayenne, not too much, just a little sprinkle right now, a couple bay leaves, let's say 3 of those, a few dabs of hot sauce. Again, sauce piquant wants to have that heat on the front, the middle, and back of the palate. And the way you do that is by adding different elements of heat. Jalapeno, hot sauce, black pepper. And those all hit different parts of the palate, right? And also, I'm gonna take the juice of 2 lemons and also add that in there. My trusty juicer here. Okay, let's give that a stir and a taste, see where we're at. I'm pretty sure that's a good starting point in terms of seasoning and where we want it to be. Again, we're gonna taste this multiple times throughout this cooking process. And we're gonna add seasonings multiple times throughout the cooking process. Let's give it a shot. That has the right foundation. Definitely not seasoned enough, but just enough to start building what that sauce is gonna look like 2 hours from now. You need salt to be able to taste where you're at in this recipe, because salt is what's actually opening up your pores and your taste buds, allowing you to taste all those seasonings of sweet, sour, salty, bitter, all the different things that are happening there. So at the very least, you need to season with salt in the beginning. So as you taste this sauce piquant or anything you're making, it's registering to your brain what it needs next. But right now, this is good. I'm gonna give it another hour of just simmering, stirring occasionally, making sure nothing's sticking to the bottom, but this is looking pretty darn good right now. All right, our sauce piquant is looking righteous. And before I move on to my next step, I just wanna show you a little bit of that gravy and how that's formed. You can see it, nice, silky, smooth, it's all come together. Those vegetables are softened and really melting into that sauce, and that's exactly what we're looking for. Remember, we've only seasoned this once, so we need to give it a shot. It's pretty close. I'm gonna add a little bit more of everything that I've already added, right? So salt, black pepper, a couple hits of cayenne, some Cajun seasoning, use your favorite one, and a couple dashes of hot sauce. We're gonna stir that in. Then I'm gonna add these black olives, onions, boiled eggs, and also the rabbit meat, the picked rabbit meat. So The rabbit was poached in this stock, which we then used for this gravy, and now I have that rabbit meat here. You can use boiled eggs or not. I love the boiled eggs, just another addition of protein. You'll see this in a lot of Cajun recipes, everything from chicken and sausage gumbos to courtbouillons to fricassees into sauce piquants. Eggs or hard-boiled eggs being added into that. And I think historically that came from when they made these dishes, they may have only had one rabbit to share with a family of 8 or even a bigger family. And so they added things like boiled eggs to just make that dish a little more substantial and give it more protein and calories. And so, but having some sauce piquante with boiled eggs on top of rice, and it's a little spicy, a little sour, it actually works really well. So black olives, add a little brininess to that gravy. These are brined pearl onions that's out the brine, so they're kind of salty with a little bit of vinegar. And so that's a nice little addition as well. It's gonna give that sauce piquante a little extra pop, a little extra texture, a little extra crunch, a little extra explosiveness when you bite into those pearl onions and olives. And then hard-boiled eggs. And lastly, your picked rabbit meat. I'm gonna kick this up just a little bit because I'm adding some cold ingredients to it. Probably gonna need an extra little ladle of let's see what happens with that. And then we're just gonna gently just stir this in. Once you get all these other ingredients in, you can basically account for another 30 minutes or so to let the meat, let the olives, let the eggs heat through, let the onions all work together in this sauce piquante. So just give it another 30 minutes. When you're at that 30, when you think you've tasted that, gravy enough, and you're like, it's right there, it tastes really good, and getting a little impatient, add the rest of the ingredients, go to 30 minutes, steam you some rice. This is the perfect opportunity to steam you some rice, because typically that's what we want to eat with a sauce piquante. In 30 minutes, you got a delicious meal ready to go. So this has got to simmer. We're gonna kick this heat up a little bit till that starts to bubble. We'll knock it down, we go 30 minutes, we're good to go. It has all come together. That rabbit is just floating around, all tender and juicy. The eggs, I know, are gonna be warmed through. Those pickled onions, those brined onions and olives, they're just kind of ready to just unleash that explosion in that bite. I'm gonna finish it with a touch more salt. Juice of a couple more lemons just to brighten up that gravy a little bit. These are small lemons, don't go crazy. Let's do that. I mean, it really is good. Man, does this remind me of my childhood. All these Cajun recipes do. You just grow up with them over the course of years and bring back so many memories. Lastly, I'm gonna take some green onions. I'm gonna use the majority to put in the sauce and fold it into the sauce piquante. Then I'm gonna take a little bit of the green onion tops towards the end and just use them to garnish the individual bowl. This half for garnish, this half for the pot. Pow. There you go. That's looking pretty stellar right there. Remove that. Woo! Tell me that doesn't look delicious. Good golly. All right. Let's see. You got a nice bowl here. A good pile. A couple eggs in there. Some rabbit meat. Just like that. Got some steamed rice. Right on top of that sauce piquante. And lastly, a few green onions right on top. I mean, that is about as Cajun as it gets. Oh, that's it. Guys, it's a wrap. I am out.